Hello, today I'm going to show you how to make consistently average sourdough. Now, why would I want to make average sourdough? That's a good question. Well, if you're anything like me, then you're a bit lazy and you struggle to commit to something even though you know it's good for you. And sourdough is good for you and it tastes delicious. I've been making it for over 3 years now on a consistent weekly basis. And the only reason I've been able to do that is because I found a very easy way. It uses 3 ingredients, flour, water, and salt. And you can kind of mess it up. You can leave it too long, you can leave it too short, and somehow it still always seems to work. So if you're interested in that, then watch this. It's 3 stages. What you first need for any successful sourdough is a starter. And this little baby I made myself over 3 years ago. We've had some great times together. So if you've got a friend with a sourdough starter, then you can grab a starter from them and you can start your sourdough journey. If not, then find a video on how to make your own starter. I tend to keep them in the fridge because that slows down the fermentation process. Sometimes I leave it a bit too long and she develops a bit of this kind of dark liquid on top, which is actually a naturally occurring alcohol, and I wouldn't worry about that at all. You just pour it off, scrape it off, give it a bit more flour, give it a bit more water, and she's good to go. Now, once you've got your starter, you are ready for stage 1, which is production sourdough. Starter, I've got some plain flour, some wholemeal flour, some warm water. The reason it's warm is because the starter or the production sourdough will ferment faster in wetter and warmer conditions. By the way, I've got a weigh-in scale here just to give you an idea of how much weight each of these things will be. However, when I do it, I don't bother with a weighing scale, I just kind of throw it in. So I'm just going to give you a rough idea of how much stuff I'm actually throwing in. So first of all, I'm going to put a few scoops of this really sticky starter in. Some big scoops. This is a big spoon. I'd probably go for one more scoop than that and see how much that comes out as. That's come out as about 170. So yeah, probably it's maybe slightly more than I'd usually do, 150, 170. Then I'm gonna fire in a bit plain flour. So let's see how much. I'd probably stick in about that much, which has come out as about just over 150 of that as well. And a little bit of wholemeal, maybe that's about 60, 70 grams of that I used. And that's all I'd do, so about 150 starter, 150 plain flour, 70, 80 wholemeal. And then I just need to stick in enough water to bring this together. So give it a little stir with my starter. Now that all depends on how wet your starter is, how much you put in. So just stick in a bit, see what happens. It's still too dry. It doesn't matter if this production sourdough is like really wet. It really doesn't matter. Like I say, the wetter it is, the quicker it'll ferment. Why don't I leave it like that? That's like a kind of wet dough. But if it was wetter than that, I would not be worried at all. I can leave this for anywhere from 2 to 48 hours really, I have, and it's been fine. So I left this overnight and you can see there's loads of bubbles in it, which is a really great sign, and it has doubled in size. So this is ready to go. First thing is that I need to take some of this production sourdough that we've got and put it back in my starter to make up for the starter that I took out yesterday. So I'm going to put in roughly the same amount. It was about 3 scoops. That's 2 big scoops. That's probably enough, but I'll stick one little one in. So I've taken out 186 grams there, which I think is pretty much exactly what I put in. Now we need to add in some more flour, because this is our actual dough that we're making. I'm going to stick in a bit of plain flour first, and let's see. Now this can vary. I reckon that looks about right to me. I've put in about just under 400 grams of plain flour there. And I'll put in maybe 100 grams or so of wholemeal as well. And you can do, what you can do with just white flour. You could do it with more wholemeal. I just tend to do a wee mix. And then I'm just going to put a bit of salt on. I think it usually works out about 8 or so grams of salt. Now is the trickiest part probably of the whole thing. It's to get the consistency right. Now you do want a slightly wet dough usually. They tend to rise better and you just get a better texture at the end of it. So first of all, I would stir in your salt and mix your flours a bit. And you can mix it with your starter a bit as well. And then you're going to put in the water. If you put in too much, you can just add a bit of flour. If you put in too little, you can just add a bit more water. So it's always safer to just do it in little amounts and give it a stir and kind of see, are we getting there? So that was a good amount of water to start with. I think we're going to need some more, but not too much more. Now, right, now that's looking good to me. What I'm going to do is, at this stage, if I was kneading it by hand, which I used to, I'd take it out and knead it. But what I'm going to do now is to put it into my mixer and let the mixer do the work. And I'll show you what this dough should look like when it comes out. Okay, so this has been going for just over 5 minutes, 5 or 6 minutes. It's a really sticky, wet dough, but that is totally fine. I've put a wee bit of butter on this tin to help it to stay in, and I'm just going to plonk it in. Hopefully that's about how big it is in the tin, and I'm hoping that this will rise up pretty much to the surface over the next 4 hours or so. I've got away with leaving it from 2 hours to 8 hours and it's been fine. Totally depends on how warm it is. If it's really hot where you are, then it could be done in an hour or so. If it's really cold like it is right now, it could be more like 8 hours till it totally rises. So I'll see how long it takes and then stick it in the oven. So I left this dough about 8 hours to rise, which is a bit longer than I usually would, but it was a cold day, so it rose slowly. I was also out all day, but the good thing about this is you don't have to plan your whole life around it. It's very forgiving, honestly. And this is looking great now. It's risen really well, and it's pretty firm, solid. So I'm going to stick it in the oven about 220 degrees for about 40 to 45 minutes, and then we'll see what it looks like. So the bread is out of the oven now. I've let it cool down on a cooling rack for a while, and this is what it looks like. Nice and crusty on the outside, but hollow on the inside. So a lovely sounder. So I'll get this cut open and see what it looks like. So here is the moment of truth. We're going to cut it open and see what it looks like. That was a really bad cut. You can see this lovely texture inside, and honestly it comes out like that almost every time. Sometimes I end up with bigger loaves, I end up with a bit more flour in them, which is nice. The bread tends to be really nice to eat for the first 2 days. After that I tend to toast it because I love sourdough toasted, and it just never goes moldy. So even after a week it's pretty solid, but you can still toast it and it's delicious. But yeah, consistently average sourdough. There you go. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments. I am going to enjoy the nice warm heel with the marmalade because it's just delicious.